So now we need to look at conformation. We need to also think about what we found out in the history. So just looking at his conformation here, he's, for his age actually, not looking too bad in terms of muscle tone. Now that might not be quite so evident on the video, but he's actually still got reasonable tone through the glutes. There is some lordosis of his spine, his back, so it is slightly dipped, and there is less musculature there than you would expect in a younger horse. And he has got more development of his brachiocephalic muscle in the neck, but again that sort of fits with the fact that he's working a little bit more hollow these days, probably pulling himself along on his front end rather than pushing from behind and up through his back. He's actually in reasonable condition. You can see the ribs very vaguely, but he's actually looking pretty well. He's got a reasonable sloping shoulder, and if he stands still for long enough, oh, we're turning round. This wasn't in Storm's diary for today. He's got a reasonable sloping shoulder, so you'd expect to have a reasonable amount of protraction of the front limb. That's matched with the fetlock to pastern to hoof angle. If we look, he's stood slightly camped under, and he's on the move again, but he's stood slightly camped under in front, but otherwise seems fairly straight through the limb. He's got a nice length of hind limb, a little bit of angulation at the hock, but it's generally fairly straight through the hind limb. But then again, that's typical of a thoroughbred, bred to obviously extend through the pelvis and create pace, as opposed to have a lot of flexion through the limbs. He's he's overall, I would say, in very good condition for 22 years old, and obviously is attitude wise feeling quite well as well. I'm going to try and have a look at him from behind. If you bring him over again, Rosie, he's back into the shade. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so if we have a look from behind, again, it might not be so easy to see on video, but looking at the way he's standing, he's not wanting to stand still, which makes it a little bit more tricky. Ideally we'd want them to stand square and still, but that's maybe not on offer today. His hocks turn in slightly, his both hind feet turn out, left hind slightly more than the right. You may not be able to see on the video, but he has got some filling in the fetlocks, and there is more filling in the left hind than the right. And my next step will be to go and feel those fetlocks for any heat. He seems reasonably evenly muscled, possibly a little bit, interestingly, a little bit less through the right side of the glutes down into the biceps femoris than the left side, but that could be the way he's standing. So let's move around to the front. Okay.
My friends and me.
Okay, so again, having a look from the front, we can see he's actually standing quite straight. He's not particularly base narrow, base wide. His feet appear to be facing forward. If anything, there's a very slight lateral rotation from the knee outwards, which continues down to the fetlock and down through the pastern, but it's very, very mild. And again, you may not be able to pick that up on the video. Okay, you can see here on this left fore, I think you thought it was right fore, didn't you, the scarring?
Oh yeah.
But if you can actually see, it's actually on his left fore. He's now trying to pick it up and show us. So we've got scarring above the knee, and we've got scarring down on the fetlock. I'm just going to have a little feel of that. There's nothing obvious there. I'm now going to have a little feel down through the limbs on each side. Limbs are very, very clean in front. Now we're going to have a little feel down the back legs. He's picked it up for me. Pop it down, sweetheart. Good boy. Okay. And yes, there's definitely some filling there. Let's just compare to the other side. So coming around to the back leg. Good boy, Stormy. Pop it down, sweetheart. Pop it down, sweetheart. Okay. Ideally, when you stood on it. Good lad. You're just trying to be helpful, aren't you? We have a quick look at the shoeing. Okay, so we can see there's definitely some wear at the toe. Doesn't look like there's slightly more wear on the lateral edge than the medial edge, which might suggest that he lands lateromedially, but he's reasonably even in the height of his heels. Again, if you want to be critical, you might say that the medial heel is slightly longer than the lateral. Let's have a look at the other front foot. So you brush the rest of the pony.
Yeah, not that.
Okay, and again, obviously knocking out more of the toe, slightly more lateral wear than medial, but it's not a huge amount. Let's get the foot back here. And again, fairly even through the heels. So looks to be fairly balanced in the foot, which is good. Let's have a look at the back foot. A little bit trickier. Okay. Again, he's worn the toe slightly more. No, I'm not going to swing the foot around, thank you. I'm trying to video. Okay. So when he's saying they're giving a little bit more heel support, he's just basically showing slightly further back than previously, is that right?
My lovely farrier. Yes. Well, my farrier before was shooting really long.
Right.
He's sort of working.
So he's actually taking the toe back slightly more.
Well, it's sort of a work in progress as far as I'm aware.
Okay. And again, we've got a little bit more.
Quite bad, so obviously you can't just take it all in one.
A little bit more wear on the toes, but overall, generally balanced foot.